Welcome to European Journeys. We are currently in a series on which we explore some of the lives of the Walloons that changed the world. These were people who lived between the 16th and 17th centuries in what is today the north of France and the south of Belgium. At the time, these lands were united in the United Netherlands at the time. And these were people who had adopted the Reformed faith at a time in which these lands were impacted by the Counter-Reformation and were being taken back by the Roman Catholic Church. And for this reason, they had to flee from these lands to lands that had adopted the Protestant Reformation in order to be able to be free to live and worship according to their faith. For the past few stages, we explored some of the lives of those Walloons that went to America and were highly influential in the making of what was then New Amsterdam, today New York, and also highly influential in what became later the United States of America, where we are again exploring another life of such people who went to the New World. And to find traces of his life, where he was born, the land where he was born, we need to go to a village called Wicres, W-I-C-R-E-S. It is not far from La Bassée, the town that we explored in our last episode when we talked about Pierre Biliou. This is a much smaller village than La Bassée. There's basically one street and some side roads. And the only testimony of the building there that comes closer to the life of the man we are going to talk about is most probably the church, the local church. It was built in the 12th century, obviously renovated over the course of the centuries. And the reason why that building is important is that since this man was born in Wicres, he was baptized there, christened there. And we're talking about the year 1626 most probably. And so the man we are talking about was Louis Du Bois. Who was Louis Du Bois? Well, in fact, as I said, he was born there in Wicres, he was baptized there, and he grew up in a very unstable time, as I already explained, because of the Counter-Reformation. And after the treaty, around the time when the Treaty of Westphalia was signed in 1648, he moved out from there, most probably because, in fact, the lands, according to the treaty, now ended up in the hands of the Roman Catholic Church. So the Protestants, many Protestants at the time, knew that they would not be able to live freely according to their faith there. They had to go away. And so he left, he fled to the region of Palatinate in the city, towards the city of Mannheim. Mannheim was in fact founded by the Huguenots refugees from France, and many people flocked there from lands which had been given over to the Roman Catholic Church. Protestants had to flee, and they ended up there in Germany, in the region of Palatinate. So Louis Du Bois ended up there in Mannheim, and there he met his wife, his future wife, Catherine Blanchard, who also came from what is today the north of France. And in 1655, they got married there. And they will not stay very long after that. About 5 years later, they left the Palatinate and went through the Netherlands to the New World. Another wave of Walloon migrants went there at the time. And Louis and his wife and his their two children then went on that ship to the New World. Where in the ship there was also Catherine's father, Louis' father-in-law, Mathieu Blanchard, who was a distiller. And when they arrived there, Mathieu Blanchard asked directly to Peter Stuyvesant at the time, who was the famous governor of New Amsterdam, he asked him if his group could go and settle to a land named Esopus, which is north, a bit further north from New York. Today, for those who know the area, is the Ulster County. That's where they went to settle. And but that was a land that was rather precarious because it came out from very destructive wars against the Indians known as the Esopus War. Now we need to draw a bit of a parenthesis here and talk about these wars. A few decades before, so here we're in 1660 when these Walloons arrived, but about 40 years earlier, a European named Matthew Chambers, an English-born man, bought lands from these Indians. And then with time, the first settlements, which were within the Dutch colony, the New Netherlands, were being founded there. They were Dutch settlements in that area. And but the Indians did not respect the terms of the purchase and attacked these settlements, even though the lands had been purchased. They attacked the settlements, and so of course the Dutch had to react, and the war began. And in 1658, a first peace treaty had been signed between the Dutch and the Indians, but the Indians did not respect that peace treaty and attacked again that area. So once again, the Dutch had to intervene in order to defend their own people there, who were in danger, obviously. And on the 15th of July, 1660, another peace treaty was signed between these Indians and the Dutch. Obviously, it was a precarious peace treaty, we know that, because the Indians had not respected the previous one. And that was at that time that the Walloons moved there. Louis Du Bois would join his father-in-law and all the other Walloons a bit later, just a few months later, in the autumn, in October 1660, with his family. And they settled first in Wildwijk, and then in a settlement called Wildwijk, and then in another new settlement called New Village, which is in what is today Hurley, by the Esopus Creek. They formed a very compact settlement with palisades. They knew that even though the land was under the terms of a peace treaty, that the Indians were not very reliable to respect the peace treaties. And in fact, they were right to not trust them, because very soon the Indians launched another devastating attack on that land, destroying totally New Village. Now, the men were out in the fields working, and so several women and children were taken captives from the village and taken away to the Indian settlements way up north. And it would take 3 months for the Dutch, helped of course by the Walloons who were willing to recover their family members, it would take them 3 months to finally be able to liberate their people. So another war, which was very devastating for the Indians this time, happened. Finally, the families were saved, and from there, obviously, Louis Du Bois and all the Walloons from New Village had to find a new place to settle. And so they went a bit further south, just about 20 kilometers or 13 miles, and founded what became New Paltz, that is, New Palatinate. They gave the name in memory of the land where they had been welcomed as refugees in Germany. New Paltz, a town that still exists today. And well, this leads us to realize that the Walloons, when they went to settle there, really wanted to found Christian societies. And this is very clear from the fact that when the Walloons moved there, the Dutch also sent a pastor, a man named Hermanus Blom, in order to be the pastor of these settlements. And Hermanus Blom gives us a striking account of how Louis Du Bois, the bravery of Louis Du Bois, in going to save his family. In fact, when he had recovered his family, as Hermanus Blom says, some Indians tried to attack him, and he didn't have any arms except a piece of a palisade, which he very violently struck against these Indians who had their guns, and succeeded in saving his life from the attack of these Indians who were trying to catch them back. So that's for the life of Louis Du Bois. Just a short comment also about armed defense. For some Christians, this is not a Christian way to behave, to use guns at any cost. But in fact, this is not quite biblical. We even see that even the apostles were carrying swords. Jesus did not blame them for carrying swords, even though he said to Peter or to the apostle that wanted to had cut the ear of that soldier, that Roman soldier, do not do that. But he didn't say, do not carry your sword. In fact, carrying swords was meant for self-defense or for defending their people. This is totally biblical position, and in fact, this was in that mindset that the Walloons reacted against these Indians during that famous time of the Esopus Wars. That is not to say that everything that had been done by the Europeans towards the Indians was right throughout history. I'm not tackling that topic. But with regards to the life of Louis Du Bois and that specific episode, it was right to try, in order to save the family members, to go and be ready to fight. So that's what Louis Du Bois did, that's what these Walloons did. And so we ought to remember also his life. And so I'm Cedric Placentino. See you next time for another stage of European Journeys.